Hello everybody. How are we doing tonight? Not even, I mean, it's kind of tonight. It's a little bit nighty-ish. It's 6 p.m. for me. Some people are here very late at night. Hello Willow. Hi Unda. Lovely for you to join us. I finished watching the last one. I was legitimately like, oh no, I better watch it or I won't know what's happening. As if I wouldn't know already. Hi Skitty. Hi Lunar. Ellipti. Duality. I was playing through Homestuck earlier. I'm in Act 4 at the moment. Ooh. Saw Carcat and physically pointed at my screen like, Carcat! Yes. Yep, Unda is here for the stream today. Because it is at a time that they can watch live. So, fun stuff. Guess who's tuning in from class? Hell yeah. Gasp the Unda. Oh my god. True and real. Thing is about Carcat is that once you know about him, he lives in your brain forever. True. I was thinking about my Gemstuck AU literally right before stream. Me and a friend were talking about Gemstuck stuff. And we were talking about Jade Dave Cat fusions, and like Jade Cat versus Dave Cat versus Jade Dave, and like how they would all be different. So I'm like in the fucking Carcat headspace right now. I've been thinking a lot about Carcat, so it's been fun, and I'm been designing some fusion designs and stuff that I want to make. Having a very, very lovely time. So. But yeah, we will jump into the summary for last chapter. I had to do the summary early, because usually I wait until like last minute before I do the summary. But I had class. I literally just came home from class. I had a presentation thing that I had to do. So my day has been pretty busy so far. So I did the chapter summary earlier in the day. So essentially last chapter, the squad went on a very fun, quote-unquote, fun little camping adventure, because Mindfang was like, hey, so you guys have to go out of bounds for the test and pass the test, survive, and you'll be fine. And you have to get back here. And Rose picked a spot after getting a vision from Cthulhu of where she should go. And Rose is like, hey, we don't tell anybody about this to Carcat. And Carcat's like, all right, if you really think so. So they go off to the adventure, thinking it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be a little fun little camping trip. And Jade's like, hey, there's no animals or like bugs anywhere. And Solux is like, and then everybody's like, that's kind of weird. And Carcat's like, I have a bad feeling. And then Solux is like, oh shit. And then Jane shows up, who's Famine, and she like threatens Solux and gets like really snappy with him. And Solux is like, why the fuck are you here? And she won't answer. And then she leaves. And the group are like wandering more, and they're like paranoid now, and they find like a bunch of RVs and tents filled with like cocaine and sex toys and like and drug and alcohol, all that sort of stuff. And Carcat's like, oh, this is probably Dionysus people. And Soluk's like, oh yeah, you're probably right. But there's nobody there, so they're like, well, that's fucking weird. And then they wander off. And Carcat can't sleep, and so he and Solux kind of stay up and they debate. Like they're like, what's the fuck's up with Jane? And Solux is still kind of being mean to Carcat for fair reason. He's still bitter. And then Carcat's like, hey, so you can only see things that can die, but like, what about things that are already dead? And then, whoa, jump scare, zombies. There's zombies everywhere. And Solux is like, oh fuck, we gotta go. And so they like rush towards, the whole group rush towards the lake to get to the island that's in the middle of the lake. And they get there, and the zombies are still following them through the lake. And Carcat's like, wait a minute, I hear books. And everybody's like, are you fucking mental? And he's like, no, shut up, I hear books. And they find a library like in the ground. They find Terezi's cave, and they find Terezi, who is a giant red and teal red-eyed teal dragon, who's like, sup, what the fuck you guys doing in my cave? And Karkat's like, I'm sorry, do you want my phone? I have more books on here. And Terezi's like, okay, that's cool, I'll take your phone, and then I won't eat you. And then they're chill. And Terezi is like, what do you mean there's zombies in my forest? And then goes off and kills all the zombies. And then she's like, I'll take you guys home with me. Or I'll take you guys home. You guys can fly on my back. We'll go to Salem. And then it's fucking, and then they go back. And then everybody's like, holy fuck, that's a dragon. When Terezi pops in with the rest of the group, and Rose is like, we're back. Did you miss me? At one point, Terezi references Dionysus' followers, but she says Dio's followers because, abbreviation. Someone said they assumed Jojo, Dio, and I have never physically recovered. I'm gonna be honest, this chapter alone is 50% why I'm like, no, trust me, guys, AU Karkat is an Arab blood, not a knight. Do you mean this chapter 15? Because you're kind of based for that opinion. Okay, that is the wrap-up of the previous chapter. We are going to hop in now to chapter 15, Past Lives. Let me turn down the music a little bit. You mean 14? I get you. He's very, I don't know. Karkat Alternate Universe is definitely a different class spec than base game, I think. Just because so much of class spec is about like the storyline and the journey that the characters go on, and I think that it's fair to say that his character arc is different than that in Homestuck's. Anyways, okay, music is turned down. We are all good. All right, it's time. Chapter 15. Here we go. All right, let me take a little sip of water. About the same length as last chapter, so that's nice. He still gets to be card just for cool card symbolism. Should I know what class specs are? Never read Homestuck. It's not super important, but you know how there's a quick explanation. You know how Solux was like a few chapters ago? He was like, yeah, so Karkat's blood, I'm Doom, like these are the different types of magic, or this is how demons classify different types of magic. That's pulled directly from Homestuck. Homestuck has a thing called aspects, and whatever aspect you're associated with it's kind of almost a personality type. And then your class is another thing that's kind of stacked on top of that. So it usually goes, you're a class of aspects. So for me personally, IRL, I'm a knight of breath. So being a knight means something specific, and then being a breath aspect means something specific. It's kind of like a big personality test. And it's Homestuck's variant on that. And it's very cool. There's a lot of like theory and lore around it, mostly fanon based because they don't expand a ton on aspect or class stuff in actual Homestuck. So a lot of it is fanon material. But if you ever wanted to figure out your class spec, it's kind of a fun thing. If you want to wiki dive, you look at the classes wiki on the Homestuck wiki, and then the aspects wiki, and you can kind of dig around and see what fits you, and it's kind of cool. There's a lot of information because there's 14 classes and 12 aspects. Is that correct? Or 16 classes? There's a lot. There's a lot of combos. But my favorite thing is to like class spec characters too from pieces of media. So I finished Monkey Kid season 4, or I like caught up with Monkey Kid, and I was looking at the main character MK, and I was like, oh my god, you are so an Heir of Hope. You are the most Heir of Hope like character I think I've ever seen in my goddamn life. Fucking definition of an Heir of Hope. So it's very fun to mess with that kind of stuff. It's a great way to describe characters. Aspects of the story and the way the character interacts with it. Yes. Okay, here we go. So we're going to get started now. But for this story, it's not super important that you know the difference between class specs and what each means. It's just kind of a fun little thing that under references sometimes. Mostly in relation to the magic types. So yeah. Okay, here we go. Chapter 15, Past Lives. So you just rode a dragon back to campus, really? Kanaya asks, her hands frozen holding several returned books. Yeah, she still has my phone too, although Rose is getting me a new one. Not that she has to, but she's good like that. You nod and open up the library emails. The library has been trying to negotiate getting some rare books in exchange for different ones with a library over in Europe. Miss Paint asked you to look out for their emails and bounce any that come in up to her ASAP. It's really exciting to know that the dragon was that into books, though, and that she was the one who made up the prophecy on that book. Did she tell you more about it? Kanaya asks curiously. No, and I didn't ask either. Hey, can we give a library card to someone who's not a student? She might like coming to look at our books, just as long as she doesn't take them back to her book hoard, you wonder. I'm sure if you asked Miss Paint, we could arrange something, especially for a fellow bibliophile. From your description, it sounds like she enchanted her cave to preserve her books, Kanaya reasons. I think she did. Have you ever seen a dragon before? You ask her. I've seen one in the distance, once. I think so, at least, but I've never met one like that, Kanaya tells you. Well, maybe I should, whatever you were going to say peters out as a door opens off to the side between you and Kanaya and swings open to reveal Spade Slick. Your wife is in her office, you say casually, as if this abnormal shit is completely commonplace. Yeah, but I'm here for you. I gotta take you to see someone, Spade Slick says, looking right at you. You're bleeding, Kanaya says softly, her eyes locked on the psychopomp's rib area with an expression that you wish you couldn't read as hunger, but that is what it is. We're not talking about that. You should wear this, he says and pushes a medical mask into your hands. You stare down at it and try to think of a good reason for him to give you this that isn't deeply worrying. You look back up at the doorway and the room beyond it. This really isn't optional, is it? You ask, and Spade Slick shakes his head. You had better bring him back unharmed, or Miss Paint will hear about this, Kanaya warns him, and you see the way that Spade Slick winces. He doesn't want the displeasure of his wife. You slide the mask over your face and adjust it, no idea if you're doing it right. If you can, make sure, or maybe just don't breathe, Spade Slick suggests, and steps back through his open doorway. That's actually a thing I can do, you tell him. Take a breath in and then stop breathing altogether. Huh, okay, well, move it then, Spade Slick says. You nod at Kanaya and follow the psychopomp through his door and into the waiting room that you only briefly saw when you went through it, or when you fell through it. It's kind of a mess with an upended game of cards and several weapons on a table. Spade Slick walks to a door on the other wall and opens it. In the same way that Midnight City was monochromatic grayscale, what you can see beyond this door is in all sepia tones. You stand on the edge of the doorway and look at what looks like a weird hospital room. As you step through it, it occurs to you why the room is odd. It's like one of those artist's perspective exercises where the room just goes on forever and ever, stretching into the distance beyond sight. Yet, you know that if you were to start walking, you wouldn't ever find the end of this hospital ward. Flies buzz in the air, or at least you get the impression of flies. A rat scurries past your feet, and it's only when you look at it really hard do you realize that it's not a rat, but somehow the concept of a rat. It's more like a model or one of Da Vinci's detailed sketches of one. Spade Slick's hand touches the middle of your back and he nudges you forward. If you don't mind, Mr. Vantus, a woman says. For the first time you notice that the endless hospital ward has a gap in the beds off to the left, and there you spy a nurse's station, where there is a woman. She's black and shiny in a way that makes you think she's the same species as Spade Slick. She's wearing a trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat. Between her segmented fingers is a cigarette and a long black cigarette holder. He's not breathing, so don't make him talk, Spade Slick calls from behind you. I can work with that, she says in a plume of smoke, and gestures to the seat on the other side of the nurse's station. Uneasily, you walk over and sit down. The metal of the chair is rusted, and it has jagged edges that you have to be very careful to not cut yourself on. Mr. Vantus, I have some questions for you. Do you know who I am? She asks. You shake your head. You don't know who she is at all. Perhaps it would give you a clue if I were to say that 2 of my compatriots were outside that club, that you've already been in the realm of one other of my number, and if my sources are correct, you recently had contact with one of the same in the woods. Would that enlighten you? She asks. You've met death, you've met famine in the woods, and Solix told you of the others, war and pestilence. If war was outside the club with famine, then the reason for Kurlaz bursting in with a hunger for violence is suddenly crystal clear. Process of elimination, and with the context clues of your medical mask as well as the sword, you're pretty sure this is pestilence. You nod. Fantastic. Now that you know who I really am, I can tell you that you may call me Snowman. I have heard that you found zombies. Needless to say, this is very much my territory. If Jane has been encroaching, then I have a problem on my hands. I created the zombification virus myself. It was a side project with permission of Aradia. Messing with Death Beyond, what's natural, would be rude without consulting her, she says. You stay silent and very deliberately don't breathe. Do you know what makes the perfect disease, Karkat? I'll tell you. If you make something very deadly, but not very infectious, you get some very interesting results, but nothing that will go very far. Left alone, diseases tend to select for very transmissible, but very mild, leaving people still able to spread it. A perfect disease is that middle ground between the two, very lethal and very transmissible. Now, I say perfect in the sense that it is the most effective, but that's not what I want. Do you know why? Pestilence asks and taps ash off the end of her cigarette. You shake your head. Snowman smiles and leans forward in her seat towards you. Because if everyone dies from disease, I have no more mortals to infect. If I hasten the end of the world, then Aradia will eventually reap my soul too. Believe it or not, I like Earth. I like humans. I like viruses and bacteria. The game of chess between me and the medical profession is wonderful, and destroying it is the last thing that I want, she explains. It's a compassion of a sort. More self-interest, but not exactly cruel either. You're still not happy to be here, and when you get out, you're going to ask Spadeslick to drop you back in your dorm so you can scrub every inch of your body just in case. If she makes sickness like Jane made hunger, then who knows what pathogens you could be covered in. You won't get Rose or any of the rest of your friends sick. You won't. The zombification virus was far too effective. It would have wiped out humanity. I had intervened with its structure myself. Now it's about as hard to catch as leprosy, and nothing of the original strain remains. Humanity has found a way to diagnose and treat it. They have protocols to contain it. All is well, she explains. Her expression turns dark and she raises her cigarette to her lips once more. If famine has gone behind my back to try and recreate my sickness in some attempt to either take my position for herself and be both horseman or as a bid to some end of the world, I will not be happy. So I need to ask you about what you saw. You're not breathing now, probably sensible, but I need answers. Did you see zombies in the woods? She asks. You nod. Human? She asks. You nod, but try your best to look only partly sure. You weren't evaluating their species when they were running after you, but you think they were human. Less than 10. You shake your head. Less than 20, she asks. You think it was more, so you shake your head again. 30, she goes on. You wave your hand uncertainly and shrug a little. They definitely wanted to eat you, she goes on. You nod empathetically at that. Did they look dead? She asks. You nod again. Right. Well, I have a problem on my hands. Thank you for answering my questions. You're the only person who was there whose word isn't suspect, and I can talk to without much risk of killing them. All the same, you'd better go soon. Slick will take you back, she says, gesturing to him. I don't work for you, Spadeslick sneers at her. You barely work at all. You should look at that wound, by the way. It'd be a shame if it got infected. Pestilence smiles meanly. You stand up from your chair and walk back to the door. As soon as you're through, you ditch the mask. Take me to my dorm, you say with what little breath is in your lungs still. It's hard to fight the reflex to breathe back in, but you manage it. When Slick lets you through the first door, once more you're in your dorm. It's Monday now, and Rose doesn't have class until lunch, so she sees you walk out of a door that's suddenly in the middle of the room. She gets out only your name before you shut yourself in the bathroom. You strip immediately and leap into the shower. You scrub every part of you with soap and wash your hair twice. When you're done, you dry off with a towel and then stare suspiciously at your probably infected clothes. You couldn't live with yourself if you got anyone sick, so you have to destroy them. In the test before, you managed to put out fire and pick it up. Can you make it? You consider that Solix can make it, and just the thought of him makes your heart sting. You stare at your hand and try not to think so much about the written spell. You've managed to set yourself on fire before, but you have the feeling that you can just... You clench your left hand, and then with a flick you open it up again, to bright white flames dancing on the palm of your hand. You made fire, and not ordinary fire either. Picking up your clothes, you find that they go up in flames immediately, and you think you're incredibly clever. Until the fire alarm goes off. You're wearing just a towel and Rose hammers on the bathroom door. You didn't bring other clothes in here, so you have no choice but to open it, and Rose doesn't give you time to explain before she drags you out the building. It's all you can do to not slip on the stairs, and the moment you're among other students, you really don't want to tell her that you're the reason the alarm is going off. I thought you were at work until class, Rose says over the alarm as you gather outside. I was. Long story, you tell her quietly, and rub one foot against the other, then the other against the opposing calf to try to dislodge the small stones from the outside pavement. The only consolation you have is that there aren't many students about in your dorm right now. Most are in class or off somewhere else. The downside of that is that when Dave comes out, he sees you right away. Hi, Rose and nearly naked Carcat, Dave says, coming over. Is Solux not coming, or is he staying inside because he's fireproof? Rose asks. I'm fireproof. Why did you drag me out before I could get dressed? You demand, your voice picking up dangerously loud before you're able to drag it back down. I didn't consider that, Rose admits. Oh no, Dave says unconvincingly, and you think he's staring at you. It's weird to think that he's staring at you because he's interested, but that's absolutely the expression on his face. Even with his shades in the way, you can see the way his head moves to suggest that he's actually looking you up and down. You're acutely aware of how there's still water running down your chest and dripping off your hair. Are you quite all right, brother dear? You look flushed all of a sudden, Rose says, unconvincingly innocent. Oh my fuck, shut up, Rose. Solux told me all about your gay disaster meeting with that vampire chick, Dave counters. Rose gives you a sharp look. You almost hold up both your hands innocently, but no, you're keeping one hand on this towel because you're not letting it go anywhere. Don't look at me. Turns out I did some whatever my species versions of a demon deal is, and I literally cannot talk about it, you insist. You never mentioned that before, Rose says in surprise. There's been a lot going on lately, you point out. Yeah, give Carcat a break. It's not his fault. He hasn't, yeah, Dave nods. Eyes over here, Dave, Rose snorts. Just shut up, Dave mutters, his cheeks blooming red as he talks. The fire marshals are waving people back inside. In your haste to get back in sooner rather than later, you end up going up the stairs before Dave and Rose. You're not going to look at Dave because based on the way Rose is snickering in amusement, you think he might be staring at you. You hurry back into your dorm room, get as dry as you can with just a towel, and scramble into some clothes before sprinting back to the library. When you burst into the office, Miss Paint, Kanaya, and Spade Slick are all there. They all look around to see you. Sorry I'm late, you pant. You don't need to breathe. Why are you out of breath? See, he's fine, Slick says loudly, gesturing to you with a bloody hand that he goes back to holding against his side. Carcat, you're all wet, Kanaya notes. He probably had to wash all the traces of disease off him because some irresponsible man took him to see the very incarnation of it, Miss Paint says with an accusing look at her husband, who wilts a little under her glare. It's not my fault, Spade Slick pouts. Oh, well, if you don't think you did anything wrong, then there's no way that you're actually sorry. So until you can be sorry and mean it, and actually say it, then you won't be saying anything else either, Miss Paint snaps, and catches Spade Slick's face in her hand, squeezing his face between her fingers. Glowing text rushes over his skin, and you see the man open his mouth, but no sound comes out. Before he can do much else, Miss Paint pushes him through his door and slams it shut after him. Honestly, she huffs in clear irritation. You look sidelong at Kanaya, who is, just like you, frozen in place in case either of you attract your boss's agitation. Now, are you quite alright, sweetie? I'm so sorry that my husband is such a reckless idiot sometimes. Also, you're dripping on the floor. Do you need a towel? Miss Payne asks you. No, I'm fine. I think I'll just go stick my head under the hand dryer in the men's room. I'd offered to stay over my shift to cover the time I missed, but I've got a workshop for my magical history class right after my shift. Could I come in early or stay late with my next one? I'm really sorry. You apologize earnestly. No, don't worry about it. I am owed time and labor, that's for sure, but that debt is not yours. My wayward husband can and will pay me back. I'm sure I can find something for him to do, even the scales. Miss Paint says, a little sharply, and you're glad that sharpness isn't focused on you. Seriously though, even you know it's a terrible idea to be indebted to a fae. As a culture, they're not really into letting debts slide. The same probably doesn't apply to Jade, as she's your friend and wasn't raised with other fae, but Miss Paint, Yeah, not a good idea to cross her. Miss Paint leaves the office, muttering under her breath. You wipe moisture off your forehead and sigh. You really do live the most interesting life, Kanaya notes. Yeah, I know. I'm unlucky like that. You agree unhappily. Excuse me. Kanaya shoos you off to dry your hair, and you go to the men's room to do so. You ignore a passing student staring at you when you're doing it. You're not going to explain yourself, it only raises more questions. As you're under the dryer with your hands braced against the wall, you find that your line of sight slips under your arm. The first thing you notice is that your sweater is inside out, and seemingly was ever since you far too hurriedly got dressed. But after that, you consider the vow etched under the flesh of your arm. You haven't done much to get Rose and Kanaya together. Maybe you could do that, but how to start? When you return to the office, Kanaya is smacking the printer with the flat of her hand, not that it seems to be helping. Can you fix this damn thing? If it doesn't work, I'm going to chainsaw it in half, Kanaya threatens. You wouldn't do that, you say and shut the door after you. This is our 4th printer of this calendar year. I will not tolerate insubordination from my machinery, Kanaya says, glaring at the poor printer. All right, I'll fix it. Stop terrorizing the poor printer, you say and step closer to the printer to try and save its life. You look like a dandelion, you know, Kanaya says after a moment and ruffles your now very out of control hair. Why this? You groan. It takes you a while to get the printer working again, disconnecting it, reconnecting it, and then fussing about with the computers and drivers and what have you. It's not that you're very technically capable, you're just able to Google the steps to troubleshoot this kind of thing, and if it's not that hard, you can do it. Besides, it's not as if you've ever had to call anyone for help with this stuff. No friends to speak of or adults in your life that cared. It's kind of nice to think that you can be a friend who can help Kanaya. Wildly controversial statement incoming. You want to help your friend and make them happy. And on that note, Kanaya, do you have Trollian on your phone? You ask her and finally take the freshly printed book labels from the printer that's now off of death row. I do. I installed it before when doing research with other people. It was easiest to communicate. Why? Kanaya asks, taking the labels from you. A dragon has my phone. Can I send a message to Rose from yours? You ask. Again, you have the strangest life, Kanaya says. Yeah, don't you know it. Still, she hands you her unlocked phone and you open the app and quickly add Rose as a contact. Hi Rose, it's Carcat. I'm trolling you from Kanaya's phone. Oh, well, hello then. Is everything alright? You appeared in the dorm and then ran out again without much explanation. Long story, I'll tell you later. Or better yet, you could grab my jacket for me from my room and come find me and I could tell you everything. I'm sure Kanaya wouldn't mind. I suppose I could do that. I'm between classes right now and I did need a book from the library. Plus I would feel terrible if you caught a cold, being out without a jacket in this weather, especially as you had wet hair earlier. See you in a bit then. Yes, you will. Thanks, Kanaya. You should know, or you should talk to Rose. I think you two would really get along. I know the impression she made with your teeth stick together and you freeze midway through handing Kanaya her phone back. Despite her less than tactful introduction, you mean. Kanaya fills it in for you and you nod. She really is nice and smart, seeing as you're nice and smart and benevolently terrifying, just like she is. I think the two of you would have a lot in common, you suggest innocently. Kanaya has nothing to add to that, but so you drop the matter for now and help her stick the new labels and books that she has to the side. You're partway through doing the library stationery order when Rose shows up. You're kind of glad that you've been entrusted to do it, because both Kanaya and Miss Paint are both a little technologically behind, so online ordering isn't the smoothest operation for them. You're happy to help. Hello, Carcat, I brought you your jacket, Rose says, leaning around the office door and holding it to you. You hold a finger to your lips and beckon her in. Rose gives you a strange look, but when she comes inside and shuts the door, you talk again. It's the same silencing spell that we have. We try to keep quiet in the main area, you explain. Oh, very clever. Rose nods. You watch as she and Kanaya make eye contact. You silently urge Rose to talk. I wanted to say once again how embarrassed I am about Halloween and my assumptions. I'm sure I came off like quite the ass. Rose apologizes. She nervously tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. No, really, you don't need to feel that way. It was quite amusing, and your heart was in the right place, Kanaya says with a smile that shows off her fangs. You think you see Rose's breathing stop as she stares at them, and not in the fearful way you've seen some students look at Kanaya. No, Rose's response is definitely a base drive, but it's not fear. Well, Carcat has had nothing but good things to say about you, Rose smiles. He was just singing your praises to me a moment ago as well, Kanaya says slyly. Oh, I think the noise alarm for one of the upper floors went off. I'll just go get on that right now. Bye, you say in a rush and duck out of the room. The two of them can be sneaky, cunning, and enamored with each other in peace. You don't actually have anything much to do right now, and left without taking a reshelving cart, so you just wander the shelves. You put back anything that's out of place, and with all the authority of your staff ID on your lanyard, you silence people talking too loud. You're lucky that you'd left the thing on your desk before Spade Slick showed up, because you'd have hated to burn it when you got back otherwise. That probably would have cost to replace. As it happens, you'd taken it off before you had to leave to Pestilence's domain, so you were able to pick up the uncontaminated ID back off your desk when you returned. Mooching past a library terminal gives you an idea, and since you have time to kill, you decide to do a little searching. The first thing you type in is Lalonde. Naturally, this brings up a whole host of papers and books that Rose and Dave's mother had written or co-written, as well as an awful lot of video files. You're impressed, but not really sure what you're looking for. After a moment's hesitation, you start to search for something else. You're not really sure of the spelling, but you try anyway. Moirail returns no such search, and it's only when you fuck around with the phonetic spelling enough to get Moirail that you get some results. You note down the book location in your mind and wander off to the demonology section. When you find the book in question, there is frustratingly no reference to the word Moirail at all in the index, and none of the section headings give you an idea of where you might find it. You turn the book over in your hands and run your hand over the glossy, albeit faded cover. This thing talks about Moirail somewhere. Could you help me find it? You whisper to the book. The book does nothing, so you start fanning the pages back and forth between your hands, letting your mind open in a way that's not too different from the tea leaf reading. You stopped out of instinct and looked down at the page in front of you. Consequences for dealing with demons. In Harley's 1982 Trials in Demon Summoning, a postgrad attempted a resummoning of the demon Asrav in Ilnudi, which Harley had experienced moderate success with earlier in the trial series. Upon realizing that he was not equipped to deal with the demon alone, he forcibly banished him after throwing holy water on him. The next day, a demon appeared outside the bounds of the wards in Harley's experimental area and ambushed the postgrad in question. The unknown demon stated that he did not tolerate harm towards its Moirail and magically liquefied the postgrad's ribcage. Due to the quick rescue work of a young lady on Harley's team, the postgrad was able to be rushed to surgery and saved. Further attempts to find out what a Moirail is have been met with unhelpful demonic mockery. Current theories is that it may be a possessive term. Given the savagery of demons, there has been speculation that it may be a term to describe those in servitude to more powerful demons, but in the sense of being enslaved property rather than simple allegiance. You close the book and sigh. Solix was right not to trust these books on demonology. Still, this is a pretty old book, so you hope the people have got better about it since then. After you replace the book, you head back to the search terminal. This time you search for the word kismesis, although once more it takes a few spelling permutations. It doesn't matter that you've read the word, you read it in a different alphabet to the one that you're using now. Kismesis appears in only one item in the library, Dr. Roxanne Lalonde's video interview number 42. The entry in the library has been tagged with a name that to your eyes looks demonic, as well as a few related tags for other names and notes that don't make much sense to you. It's a video entry to the library, but there's no transcription related to the title that you can see, and what's even more frustrating is that it's been checked out. You scowl at the out of loan tag on the screen and swipe your staff ID on the side of the terminal. Library users aren't supposed to see who has checked out what items, but as a member of the library staff, you can. If it's some doctoral student who's checked this out, then it might not be back until several months from now. But if it's someone in your year, then it'll be on a shorter loan. Okay, student ID number. This person has checked out every single video in the series. You click on the ID number to bring up their profile and... oh, Dave Lalonde. Dave has checked this out, and you're pretty sure he's not studying up on his mother's work. He's probably homesick, or missing her more coherent states. God, you feel awful looking this up. You've never seen him check anything out, so he must have been coming to the library when you're not here. Maybe it'd be worth studying the series too. Not for the same reason as Dave, but if anything, you're pretty aware that your understanding of demons could improve. You note the location down and head to the area where the video articles are kept. As far as you knew, everything had been digitized and video recordings were viewed on the library's own little knockoff YouTube. The physical recordings were just so you had backups. When you find the shelves that house Dr. Roxanne Lalonde's video interviews, you're stunned to find that they're actual VHS tapes. Not even discs, but tapes. You pull the first one off the shelf and look at it thoughtfully. You head to your boss's office, fielding a few questions from students about where something or other is, but you get there. "Hey, boss," you say, sticking your head around the door to her office. "Yes, employee?" She replies without looking up. Try again. Miss Paint, sorry, I had a question about these," you say, holding up the tape. Miss Paint turns around and looks at what you have in your hand, probably reading one of the library's many items better than you can yet. "What sort of question?" she asks. "Well, I went to look something up, and what I was looking up for only came up in one of these tapes. It's checked out, that's not my question, but there's no transcripts of them, and they're not digitized. What gives?" you ask. "Unfortunately, there's recordings of demons on that. The magic used at the time to keep demons from influencing the world outside made it so any attempt to get it on anything but the original video scrambled it. A transcription would work, but it's never been done," she explains. "But that's terrible. She did all this work, and unless you can rent this one tape, you can't experience the actual source material. I know she's written fuckloads of books and stuff, so it's not like all of her work, but this is important," you insist. "I agree," Miss Paint nods and moves to a cupboard against one wall. She rummages around inside and then comes back with a small box and a bundle of cables. She pushes the box into your arms, and when you look down, you see it's a VCR player. "I just signed myself up for transcribing these, didn't I?" you say slowly. "You did. Now, didn't you have a tutorial to get to?" Miss Paint smiles. "You have been soundly outmaneuvered, and it would be smart to retreat before you get lumbered with anything else to do." You nod and scuttle backwards out of her room. She is right that your tutorial for your History of Magic class is going to start soon. You stow the antiquated VCR player in your bag of holding and check the first video out in the library. Through the office window, you can see that Rose and Kanai are still somehow flirting with each other, so you leave them to it and head to class. There's a free seat next to Aridin in class, so out of sheer awkwardness, you go and sit next to him, because he's the only person you know in that class. "Carcat, I heard a rumor about you," he says as you sit down. "I refuse to justify my choice as a pirate for Halloween. It was the only good costume," you tell him and rummage through your bags for your things. "First," Aridin says and holds a ring-covered finger up, "pirate is an excellent costume choice. Pirates are cool. Secondly, no, the rumor I heard was you showed up after your test on the back of a dragon." "Oh, yeah, I need to text her when I get a new phone. Her name is Terezi," you tell Aridin. "Is this normal for you?" Aridin asks in disbelief. "Well, nothing's normal anymore. I have given up on normal. Normal is a distant memory, vanishing speck on the horizon. My life is now an endless, well, this may as well happen, as each new absurd thing smacks me in the face." You sigh. Well, okay," Aridin stammers out in surprise. At the front of the room, Equius is politely coughing to draw the attention of class. It seems a little like the attention he already has is making him nervous if the glistening sweat on his flanks is anything to go by. You have an idle moment where you wonder if he has 2 rib cages or not before he starts to talk. "Thank you. As we discussed in class, the war between the Fey kingdoms of summer and winter have been long running. It is rumored to have begun," Equius starts. You hurriedly flip your notebook open and start taking notes, referring back to what you wrote in class. As this is a tutorial, there's more time for you to really ask detailed questions about some of the things that you've considered before now. You ask him a fair few things, and to his credit, Equius seems knowledgeable, and when he doesn't know something, he tells you exactly that. Equius does seem painfully awkward, though. He seems deeply uneasy with people and unsettled just to be there. He's a little weird, but not in a creepy way or anything, although sometimes he gets a little forceful with his opinions on certain topics, but it seems fine. The one thing that is weird about all this, though, is that Aridin is still not taking notes. At one point, your pen runs out, so you have to lean down so you can reach into your bag of holding to grab a new one. But as you're down there with your face on your desk, you realize something. You hear Aridin swallow another mouthful of coffee that he seems to always have, but after that, you don't hear him breathe. You sit up sharply, unable to focus on Equius's lecture. You should be listening, but instead your senses of hearing are trained solely on Aridin. Minutes pass, and he's not breathing. You even look at him out the corner of your eye as subtly as you can. As you look, you see there's no denying that he's just not breathing at all. He didn't remember his past either, and you don't need to breathe. Is he whatever you are too? What if all the people with total memory loss from the event are whatever species you are? Why would the event wipe out the memories of a species? That's so awful. As you're getting up at the end of class, you're working on how to talk to Aridin about it. You don't want to just blurt it out in the main room, so you linger at the door and catch Aridin by the arm. You're about to speak when you hear other voices instead. No, I don't want to go in there, Solux protests. Dude, I feel you, but it's the tutorial and we gotta, Dave counters. You slink close to the wall and hope they don't see you. You really don't want to deal with Solux if he's in a bad mood. Aridin seems to notice what you're doing and steps back too, giving you a quizzical look. No, it's just that he's creepy as all fuck, Solux hisses, and he's backing up so you can see him just around the edge of the doorway. Thankfully, he's not looking at you at all. He's turned to the side to look at Dave. Aridin sees him and steps back closer to you. He is creepy, Dave agrees. Right? It's not like it's a centaur thing, because Darkleer is just weird but fine, but that guy, he's just... Solux shakes his head and growls. Yeah, I get it. It feels weird, Dave nods. So let's just not go, because as long as that guy is around, I'm not going to feel good, Solux pleads. Mandatory class module, dude. Look, let's just walk around the building again, like build ourselves up to it, Dave suggests. Solux doesn't seem pleased, but he follows Dave anyway. That sounded like they meant Equius, you say quietly, more to yourself than Aridin. Yeah, it did. Do you know them? Aridin asks you curiously. It's complicated, same friend group, you say, skipping out a lot of very pertinent information. Huh, okay. Sounds kind of dangerous, though, Aridin says. Solux? No, listen, I'd better go. I'll see you later, you tell Aridin. Wait, we should... What's your number? Aridin asks, making you hesitate. I still don't have my new phone yet. I don't know what number it'll have when I get it either. I could give you my Trollian, though. That I have on my laptop still. It's carcinogenicist. I'll write it down, you say, and quickly scribble your account name down. He bids you goodbye, and it's only when you get back to your dorm you realize you forgot to ask him about the not breathing thing. You don't feel like you can bring it up over Trollian either. How would you subtly segue into, hey, so I noticed you weren't breathing, without sounding like a complete weirdo? Instead, you go into your room, turn on the Do Not Disturb sign, and take the VCR player out. It takes a while fiddling with the cables to get the thing to display on your monitor and put sound out. You figure it'd be sensible to have a listen of the whole thing first so you know the context of what you're transcribing. You start the video playing. Excuse me. The first thing that flashes up is a title screen, which is just a sheet of paper detailing the date and the experiment number on it. You can hear the rustling behind it, which is how you knew the sound was working when you were setting it up, if you hadn't watched beyond this, though. When the paper is pulled back, you see Dr. Lalonde, or, as you suppose was then, just Roxy Lalonde. The amount that she looks like Rose takes your breath away, but the air of nervousness about her and the way she's trying to play it off screams Dave. You can see why Dave would want to watch these. Roxy puts the paper off to the side and shifts back on her heels from where she's kneeling. Beyond her, you can see a blank white room like the practice room you used before, or at least the walls are blank. The floor is covered with elaborate script and circles that look as complex as the kind she was using to summon you back. Roxy Lalonde, video recording, first official test. There was a pre-test, but I worked out that digital doesn't play nice, so analog it is. Plus, the demon was able to escape on its own, so I fixed that. Stupid syntax error. Anyway, test begin, Roxy chirps. She shuffles over on her knees, so she's at the edge of the circle. You see her take a steadying breath and then press her fingers to the edge of the circle. It lights up in a hot pink and chugs along a few moments before there's a flare of teal inside and a startled-looking demon. Roxy gasps and sits up straighter, smiling at the demon. You think you might vaguely recognize the demon, actually. Maybe she was at Solux's party at the club. Nope, she says slowly. There's a flash, but nothing happens, and the demon looks concerned. Hi, please, let me explain, Roxy says, holding up a hand. The demon narrows her eyes at Roxy. My name is Roxy Lalonde. I'm a witch and a researcher. I'm trying to study demons, and I wanted to ask a few questions. I want to make you an offer in exchange for information, and if you don't like it, then I'll release you. No harm, no foul. Just hear me out, Roxy says hurriedly. Do you have a death wish? The demon asks, seemingly as confused as she is irritated. No, that's why there's all these protections. Listen, I just want to know more about demons, Roxy insists. Why, so you can try to kill us? The demon asks. No, I think it would be pretty unfair to ask you that, both because I don't super condone killing sentient people unless it's in self-defense, so giving other witches more intel on how to hurt your kind sort of goes against my ethics, you know? But, like, we know almost nothing about how demons actually work, and what I've read, we do know, seems kind of BS that people have inferred rather than just asked and researched. So, I wanted to do this all anthropologically, with interviews, Roxy explains. And why would I help you with that? The demon asks. Well, I think that replacing ignorance with knowledge is a pretty valuable thing, Roxy starts. The demon laughs, though she sounds weary. Void magic users, right? Go on, she chuckles. Roxy looks a bit thrown, but does keep talking. Secondly, I swear on anything you'd like to not hurt you when you're in the circle, and I won't let anyone else do so either. I vow to not knowingly share any information I gather from you with other demons. It's fully confidential. I'm making this recording for my own notes, but it'll only be in my university. If you want, I can tell you things in return, or if there's something you'd like me to do that I'm willing to agree to, we can do that. It's just, you can tell me these things and no one else will know but me. I get to improve our knowledge on how a whole species works, and you can be part of that. I'll release the part of the spell that stops you leaving if you want to go, or if you want to go, you can. I don't want to force anyone to talk, Roxy explains. She waves a hand and a light at the edge of the circle changes color. The demon looks at it, then back at Roxy, blinking slowly. You really expect demons to just do this? She asks. I'm sure plenty won't. I mean, even when people are testing magic or psychological studies on people on this plane, loads of people don't sign up to those studies, or they drop out if they do. But I won't know if I don't ask, Roxy says, her voice small and earnest. You want to cheer for her, being so hopeful and earnest in her quest for knowledge. She's treating demons with respect, and it's no surprise at all that Solix likes her. The demon adjusts her glasses and sighs. This is a hopeless quest, and you won't get anywhere with it, she says. Well, Roxy starts. I'm in. I won't tell you everything, I won't tell you everything. I'm not stupid, but I needed a break anyway, so I might as well do this. The demon shrugs and sits down opposite Roxy on the ground. She pulls a mug out of nowhere and takes a sip of whatever is inside it. Roxy perks up immediately, and again, you see Dave in her. What's your name? Roxy asks. I'm not telling you the whole thing, but Tizius is part of it. You can call me that, the demon answers. Tizius, spelt like that? Roxy asks, scribbling the name down and showing it to her. If you're going to phonetically do it in your own alphabet, sure. Tizius shrugs. Okay, great. Well, what do you do? Roxy asks. I'm a legislator. I work with legal stuff. She answers and has another sip. Another sip. What kind of legal stuff? Laws applying to demons or something else? Roxy questions her. A clever question as far as you're concerned. Probably not one you'd have thought of. No, well, I'm trained for that too. My law applies to humans, abdicating on whether contracts are fair is part of it, but also working on reform with post-mortem so the right people end up in the right place when they die. In modern life, humans can be shitty in ways we hadn't imagined in the old days, I guess. Tizia shrugs. That's really interesting, given that demons do have something to do with the afterlife, and, well, hell. It's like people think bad people should be punished, but then look down on the people doing it. You can't have it both ways, Roxy reasons. That's one way of looking at it. I don't deal with the punishing side of it much, or not to humans. I suppose I wasn't entirely accurate earlier. My job is mostly reforms, like I said, but that process is slow as fuck. I'm also in a team doing legal advice for demons who aren't doing their job right. Sometimes I get to reassign people to something they'd rather do. That's nice. Tizius nods. Sounds like you do a lot of things, Roxy remarks cheerily. So much stuff. Tizius nods and pinches the bridge of her nose. What about social things? How does that work? Roxy asks, moving on with her topics. What social stuff? I'm always working. I guess I see a lot of other teals, or I guess I see other teals a lot, Tizius says, but Roxy cuts in. Teals? Roxy asks. Tizius squints at her and then points at her eyes, which have unnatural, well, teal-colored irises to them. Demons are different colors. It used to mean something. Thankfully now it doesn't much. Everything used to be divvied up by color, but he decided that was Fucking stupid rainbow bullshit. I mean, of course, but Tizzy grimaces a little, showing Fang as she does it. Who do you mean by he? Roxy asks. Tizzy raises an eyebrow and points one finger right to the ground. I mean him, Tizzy says significantly. Satan, the devil, the prince of darkness? Roxy lists off quickly. Stop that. It's not super likely that he'll pay attention because he heard you use his pseudonyms, but I don't want to be here if he does, so cut it out. Tizzy interrupts. Alright, but but that's who you mean? Roxy presses on. Yes, Tizzy groans. Do you not like him? Roxy asks, leaning forward a little as she does so. I've never met him. That's probably added to my life expectancy. Also, if you're going to keep doing this, you run a real risk of talking to someone who will tell him just what you're doing. Not that I'm helping or anything, but I'm just saying, or whatever. She mumbles and looks away. Thanks for the tip. I'll try to be more careful. Roxy smiles, and you think Tizzius is trying to not like Roxy and failing. Anyway, like I was saying, I spend time with other teals. The legal profession, typically biased teal more than any other profession, still does. It is what it is. I spend time with them. The difference between socializing and what I guess you humans would call networking is blurry. I see my mate sprit, but that's about it. If you wanted a good look at demon social life, you should have summoned someone else, Tizia says with a shrug. What's a mate sprit? Roxy asks. Right, human. Think of her like my wife. Listen, I have to go back to work, so I'm gonna go. But good luck with your project, I guess. It's a noble goal, even if it'll probably get you killed. Tizia says as she gets to her feet. Roxy does so as well and gives the demon a warm smile. Maybe, but everyone's gotta go sometime, right? Thank you very much for your help. Roxy smiles. Tizia shakes her head a little fondly and then vanishes off in a puff of teal. There's a pause, and then Roxy squeaks in delight and legitimately hops up and down on the spot before turning the camera off. You find that you're smiling as well. Roxy is kind and honest about what she's doing. She treats people with respect regardless of species. You can see why her work did as well as it did, and you can see Dave and Rose so much in her. You rewind the tape and settle to start transcribing it. The next morning, you're leaning against your door frame as you wait for Rose to find the sweater she insists she has to wear. You're pretty sure that she's planning on seeing Kanaya later and wants to look pretty or something. It's fine. You can assume yourself by playing tic-tac-toe against yourself on the little whiteboard at your door. Alright, it's not that entertaining, but you don't have a phone anymore since a dragon took it, and you have very little else to do. June shoves open the door to the stairwell and rolls her eyes at you in an exaggerated sigh. He's still sulking, June announces. I am not, Solix shouts from further back. June and Jade exchange a look that tells you just how little they believe him. Sulking about what? You ask warily. Nothing, because sulking is not what I'm doing. Solix snaps at you as he comes to the door, as if any of this is in any way your fault. Well, yeah. Oh, hold on. Oh, okay. Went to the next thing. My music stopped. Well, you ain't just talking about it, man. I told you that you can't drop a class no matter how creepifying you find the TA. If you keep going about it, you're either sulking or whining, Dave points out as he joins you. Is this about Equius? You ask Solux. Yes. Doesn't he seem creepy to you? Solux demands. He must be pretty desperate if he's seeking your opinion. No? Well, he's awkward and pretty sweaty. He's pretty intense, but I think creepy is pushing it. Mindfang is creepy. Equius, not nearly as much. You say, and Solix grumbles in irritation. So, alchemy. It's purifying today. I'm guessing water, but the class list didn't say, and it's the vagueness that concerns me. Dave says as you rub the details off your tic-tac-toe board. You're going to leave it as suddenly a cross appears in one corner in a gently glowing red. Alright, you draw a circle under it. Maybe we'll start with water and move on to other things. Purifying metal. I'm sure they do that in the industry, right? You wonder. Solix makes another move and you counter it. I doubt it. Not when just getting things really hot works instead. You don't need magic for everything, June reasons. I guess being in school so much makes you think about magical uses for everything, you admit, and watch Solix place another cross. You think you might win this, actually. You make another move and he pauses. Yeah. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? June laughs. You'd know about hammers. Jade snorts and punches June in the shoulder, so they're both chortling away. Rose, are you actually coming with us anytime soon? Dave shouts past you into your dorm. Just a second, Rose shouts back. A second grid floats above your first one, and Solix places his cross on that. Motherfucker, this isn't fourth-dimensional chess. You can't do that, you argue, turning around to glare at him. I clearly can. Your move, Solix says smugly. And how am I meant to draw on thin air? You ask him rather pointedly. Working that out is a you problem, Solix shrugs. You barely resist throwing the marker at him. Thankfully, Rose arrives at the door, so you toss it at the counter instead and leave. I have to pick up the mail. I got an email saying the building office signed for a package for me. Rose informs you as she pulls the door shut. Why must you place so many obstacles between me and Waffles, Rose? Why? Dave whines. You don't have to come with. You're perfectly welcome to go ahead and go to breakfast while I pick up my package and sign for it, Rose points out. But then I'll have to live without knowing what's in the box, Dave pouts. You know what you could put in the box, June grins. You're subjected to following Rose to pick up her package, which is indeed a box, as Dave and June catch the previously uninitiated Jade up on the dick-in-a-box joke. The whole time it's going on, you swear you can feel Solix's eyes hot on the back of your neck. He wasn't so hostile earlier. Does that mean that he's less? It hardly matters, though, does it? Even if he isn't angry with you, it's not as if you can be close to him. He's refused to explain anything emotional to you, and won't let you get any closer. Even if he isn't actively aggravating you, that's still not changed. It still hurts, and you wish it didn't. Rose leads you all to breakfast, refusing to do anything with the box until you're all sat down ready to eat. Well, you're ready to eat. Dave is obsessing over the box. Here you go, Carcat, Rose says and hands you the mysterious box that is absolutely addressed to her. You say. It's for you. Open it, Rose insists. She doesn't seem to be joking, so you awkwardly have to use your dull butter knife to cut through the packing tape. It's not that you're getting very far. Solix seems highly amused by your struggle, though, and doesn't stop grinning when you glare at him. You could help, mister. I have several swords on my person at all time, you snap at him. This is going to be great. I'm just waiting for it, Solix says, resting his chin on his hand. Stupid Solix. You go back to stabbing at the packing tape with your now very sticky and blunt butter knife. Solix could magic you up one of his weapons. It's not like you... Solix's shoulders are now shaking in silent laughter. Laughter that becomes an out loud kind when you hold your hand out and your sickle falls into it. Not a fucking word, you hiss at him, and quickly slice the packaging open with your weapon that almost certainly was not meant to be used for this. Once the packing tape is defeated, the top opens easily. It opens to reveal a box for the very latest iPhone, with what appears to be the highest specs going. Your jaw drops and you stare at Rose. The SIM card should be already installed. I put you on our plan, and I warn you that if you dare refuse this phone or protest at all, I will sneak into your room at night and put permanent marker on your face in whatever design I so choose. Rose threatens you. Oh my fuck, do you remember when Dave had angry elbows for a straight week? Or angry eyebrows, not elbows. June howls. I still have the pictures. Solix snickers. All three of you can suck it. I am only friends with Carcat and Jade now, Dave says. Wait, can I see these pictures? Jade asks hopefully. Sure, Solix says and starts flicking through his phone. Dave reaches over the table and places his hand on yours. You are my only friend now, Carcat, Dave whispers, and even though you know he's joking, there's something about the way he says it and his hand brushing against yours that makes your stomach flip-flop. You'd think the same must happen to him because he pulls back looking a touch flustered. It should be more or less ready to go, though I'm sure syncing it and copying things across from whatever you had backed up pre-Terezi will be both boring and frustrating in its design, but such is the way of technology. Rose shrugs. Thank you, Rose. You really didn't need to. It's really kind. You sniff, actually getting a little teary-eyed. Well, you did save our butts in there with that dragon. Not that I couldn't have taken her, but your way was way better. June nods. June, I'm not doubting your skills with your giant hammer and your improbable upper body strength, but she's an ancient, giant, fire-breathing dragon, you tell her. And June shrugs like that's your opinion, and not an indisputable fact about how June would instantly be cremated and Terezi would be fine. You tap at your phone and start to set it up as you eat your breakfast with just your fork. The knife still has too much packing tape residue on it to make you want to put it anywhere near your mouth. You might be missing most of your memories from your life, but you haven't forgotten your own phone number, so you send yourself a text. Hi, Terezi. This is Carcat. This is my new phone, so if you want to talk to me, you can just message me back. I could help you set up a trolling account if you want. Also, my boss says we can get you a library card if you want to come and read our books. He figured that you may or may not hear back right away. She's probably not the most technologically inclined, given that she's a dragon who has been sleeping in a cave for who knows how many years. So when you get a message back almost immediately from your old phone number, it catches you off guard. It's a picture message, too. You squint and decide that it's almost certainly a picture of Terezi's nose close up, as if she was trying to sniff the camera. Before you can send a message back to her, you get another message from her. This is a picture as well, but it's far clearer than the last one. It's a picture of her in a hot tub from the shoulders up, but she's not alone. Looking around her shoulders is Roxy Lalonde in a neon pink bikini. You say out loud, perhaps a little too loud. I sense shenanigans, June says, perking up. I messaged my old phone to contact Terezi, and she sent me this picture back, you say and turn the phone around. Mom? Dave exclaims. Sollux's eyes go wide, and he immediately vanishes. You assume to go back to the Lalonde house to find out what the hell is happening. Wait, take me with you. Okay. Dave trails off. Let me see that, Rose insists and pulls your phone around. Her eyebrows creep up her head in surprise, but she doesn't seem as concerned as Dave. She mentioned that she had a friend, and you said before that the book that was locked up because of the prophecy said of a dragon seer. She seemed to know Mother, so perhaps they were friends. Maybe she was the friend that Terezi mentioned she was going to see, Rose says. Cool, so your mom will let a literal dragon hang out with her, but not let me in the house if she can help it, June says bitterly. It is pretty weird to think my mom as someone with friends, Dave agrees. Solux reappears, dripping wet and scowling. Did you get dragged into the hot tub? June snorts, seemingly cheered up right away by the comedy of Sollux's misfortune. It doesn't dampen your day either. Sollux flares fire over his skin for a second, and when it dies down, he's dry again, although still surly looking. It's cool. They're old friends, apparently, and your mom is happy enough. Probably shouldn't kick out someone who's making her less isolated, Sollux says and sits down again. Perhaps with more socializing, she might do a little better, Rose says quietly, like she's trying to restrain the hope inside her, but not quite managing it. After a moment of thought, you send Terezi another text. Have fun. Your days just kind of go on from there. Sollux alternates between being distant with you and having moments where it seems like something could be changing for the better. It's frustrating to be stuck in this limbo, and it's not exactly made easier with each new time you hang out with Dave alone after class. You can't help but notice all these things about him that would be better if you didn't. The soft way he smiles sometimes, or even just anything about his lips in any way that all is a bad idea for you to notice. That's normal enough with pining, but when you're working on the same when you're working on the same magical language and you're talking about how you're trying to solve the problem in your work and he has ideas that are different than your own. Not better exactly, he just has a unique approach to things that draws you in. Dave isn't just cute and funny, though he certainly is those things. He has genuine depth to him, and you're catching more and more. It's there in the way he thinks through problems and the way he's clearly genuinely smart, and not just gifted with raw magical powers from his mother. There's an intelligent mind at play. He's subtle about it, not like Rose, who wants to use how smart she is like a weapon to ward people away from underestimating her. Dave seems fine not to stand out for being smart, but the jokes he makes sometimes and the problems he solves betrays him. When he really gets talking about something, and his hands move as he talks, it makes you think of the artistic masters studying details like that. Gestures of hand and Dave feel like some kind of masterpiece. What you're saying is that you have it bad, and you can't be with him still. You're pretty sure that he, for some reason, feels the same about you. At least that's the only explanation for moments like this. Look, Dave laughs, leaning against your shoulder so he can see the video that he's made you watch. The video in question being a YouTube compilation of bird finds. The one you're currently watching has a parrot squeezing through a door and walking toward the camera as it laughs in a way more fitting of an evil genius, finally revealing their plans instead of a bird. I love the little guys too, the ones with that skateboard. I know there were a few of those in here, Dave adds. He leans across you and scrubs to the video with his finger until he gets to a video with small little birds riding those tiny skateboards down miniature ramps. Only the person who edited the video has superimposed the kind of on-screen stuff you get in a computer game. You start to say as you turn your head to look at him. You don't know what you were going to say, that he's ridiculous, that he's something else. It falls completely out of your brain when you look at him, though, because he's leant over you. He's a little lower, so he's actually looking at you a little. His head tilted near to yours, and the two of you are just ever so slightly so close. It's not as if you're touching each other at all that much. He's pressed against your shoulder a little, and his knee is just against your leg ever so slightly. You're aware of all the places you're not touching, because it feels like there's electricity between you two. Your hormone-addled brain reminds you of those weird electric orbs that they have in those science museums. When you touch them, it all trails glowing lights from your fingertips as it makes contact between you and its center. It feels like that, as if all the air between you and Dave is charged and crackling. You mumble dumbly, glance down at Dave's lips, and almost die at the way you see him gasp just a little bit. Maybe not a gasp, a breath of anticipation or something. You're too idle to think right. You want to kiss him. He wants to kiss you. And yet, neither of you can do what you want. I mean, yeah, birds, right? Dave babbles as he pulls away from you. His ears are pink and there's a flush creeping down the back of his neck, too. You're sick with all the things you want and can't have. You wonder if Solux actually does treat you worse every time you have one of those moments with Dave, or if these moments just make you feel raw, and so you act off around Solux and he reacts to that. Either way, you're stuck in this terrible tug-of-war that you can't win or escape from. Right now, at least, he seems to not be talking to you and avoiding you altogether if he can. You take half-hearted notes in your magical languages class, and when class lets out, Solux just teleports away immediately. Whether it's personal, or maybe he just doesn't want to walk through the cold, drizzling rain back to your dorm, you don't know. It certainly feels personal, though. Do you think we're going to get all that many assignments over winter break? I think we have with the magical history, at least, but we have so much to catch up on. They could even do online learning a little for that, for that to even up, perhaps, Jade muses. Are you wishing for more classwork, Jade? Rose laughs softly and pulls her umbrella a little closer to fend off the gust of cold wind. Well, it's not as if I have anything else to do over break, Jade says with a shrug. I'm not going back. I don't care how cold it is here. Fuck Georgia. Well, fuck this weather too. Fuck everything. You grumble and tug a little on the strings that go through your hood of the anorak that's doing little for the cold and not enough against the rain either. Yeah, cats don't like water. Dave grins. You know he's trying to goad you into bickering with him instead of complaining about the cold, but you're actually, ironically, too cold to be bothered with that. You shake your head as he holds the door to your room, or to the dorm building open. Rose goes in last, lingering in the doorway to flick the water off her umbrella with one sharp open and close of it. That didn't do much, Rose sighs as she walks into the building, holding up her dripping umbrella. Well, whatever. The worst will probably drip off on the way back to the dorm, and if it doesn't, then who cares? By the time we're done with first year and have to move out somewhere off campus, I'm sure we'll have worked a way to get water stains out of the carpet, you point out. True, Rose concedes, but shakes her umbrella all the same as you climb up the stairs together. June is still teasing Jade for wanting more work from her classes, and you're about ready to leap in and say something smart about June not wanting to share notes anymore than if she thinks that studying is so dweeby. Something like that. You don't get the chance. Something sharp and terrible lances through your chest, bursting right through your heart. You clutch your hand to your chest and stagger back, thankfully across the same stair and not down several. You stumble back into a wall as you gasp for breath. Everything is wrong. You shouldn't be here. You know instinctively that you should be somewhere else. Karkat? Rose exclaims and grabs your shoulders to steady you and stop you from falling down. She keeps you in place. She's keeping you here, and you shouldn't be here. Your whole body explodes in a horrible under the skin static, like when you move a limb that's gone to sleep. A burst of knowledge sears through you. You shouldn't be here. You should be there. Now. Now! You scramble down the stairs, tripping a little. You haul yourself up off the ground floor and sprint through the doors that you just recently walked through. You're late. You're late. Desperately, you run in the direction you need to go, pushing people aside as you sprint through. There's a flare of lights and something crashes into you. You tumble onto the floor and hear the screech of tires as you skid on the wet tarmac. The fuck are you? Oh no, Solux says, an inch from your face. What the hell do you think you two are doing? I could have hit, a man is shouting. Solux's appearance flickers and he's suddenly bigger and snarling, his back covered in hellfire. The man screams and runs, but you don't care where to or who he is. You have to move. You have to get away. You have to get there. Where do you have to go? Solux asks, and that at least penetrates your brain in a haze of obsessive direction, but all you can do is vaguely screech and point your finger. Fuck, okay, that's not helpful, Carcat. I need your permission to find out where you need to go and get you there. Do you give me that? Solux asks clearly. Anything, you can do anything, you insist desperately. Solux frees his eyes wide, and his face shifts into an almost pained expression. You are lucky this is me and not someone else. Hold still, he says. Solux sits you up on your stomach and unzips your coat. He shoves his hand up your sweater underneath until his hand is over your heart and the glowing mark you know is there. He frowns slightly and focuses, and you feel a weird disconnect of him occupying the same space that you're in. It's not like he's put his hand inside your chest or anything. It's like he's slightly out of sync with your atoms or something, so he's existing in all the spaces that your atoms currently aren't. It shouldn't be possible. It can't, but it's happening. Got it, Solux sneers and snatches his hand back. Abruptly, there's a puff of smoke and a rush of movement. Then all at once, you're elsewhere, and you can feel that you're so much closer to where you're meant to be. You stagger to your feet as Solux hops off of you. Like a compass needle to the North Pole, you can feel where you're supposed to be, where you're being called to, and you take off running. It's down an alleyway, and right. You skid around the corner and you see two demons and a man. A man with your face, or close enough. It's bloodied and clearly he's been smacked around a lot already. Something deep inside of you screeches about the fact that he's only this hurt because you didn't get here right away. One of the demons sees you, stares, and then looks between you and the man who looks just like you. He raises a wicked-looking knife in one hand, and before you can even throw your hand out to stop him, he plunges it into the man's chest. His face that's so much like yours contorts in pain, his eyes screwed tight in agony from the knife buried in his chest. The demon lets him go, and the man falls forward onto his knees and then his hands as well. The knife is still buried inside, pierced through his red sweater on one side and out the other. What the fuck? Solux whispers as the man... It's hard to say what you're looking at. Shock has you frozen in place and you can hardly process what you're seeing. The man almost disassembles. He doesn't fall apart into meat chunks like some video game character. It's more that his skin burns away in light, and underneath is some impossible sight. Rings and rings spinning around intertwined in ways that defy physics, only they shatter and vanish as soon as you can even get the slightest look at them. In bright white and red light, the man fizzles into nothing. The burning need in your chest to be here fades, and what is left is something hollow and awful. One of the demons moves towards the knife that's protruding from the dead man's clothes. That's all that's left of him now, clothes on the floor with no one in them. As he reaches for the blade, Solux flings himself forward with a snarl and a curse on his lips. Not swearing, but an actual curse. You can feel the malicious intent in it as Solux stands hulking and huge above where the man fell. He's easily 12 feet tall now, and on fire with red and blue light. The two demons turn tail and run, and when they're gone, Solux shrinks back down to normal. He stood over the sweater with a knife in it, and with a sigh, he reaches down and pulls the knife free. What? You choke out. Solux inspects the inky black blade with a frown and looks at you. He waves a hand and you find yourself picked up from the ground and leaned against the nearest brick wall, although it's not the same spot where the man was stabbed. Just try and keep calm. I'm sure this feels like shit if you're anything like us, Solux says quietly. He crouches on the ground near you and stares at the knife, turning it over in his hands. What is that thing? You ask him shakily. It's something I didn't think people could get anymore. I thought the whole part was blocked off and impossible to get to. Maybe someone had one on them when everything went to shit, but how those nobodies got this, I don't know. It's just a knife, but it's designed specifically to kill what you are, Solux says and then makes it vanish. A knife to kill your kind? So he was... obviously he was whatever I am. He looked just like me. Who was he? Why did he look like me? How did I know where to come? What made me need to be here? You ask in a rush, words flowing out of you in desperation. Solux frowns and looks away. He pauses for a few long seconds and then looks at you again with a very significant expression on his face. Remember I gave you that lesson about demons before? I realized I didn't mention a few things, and I should give you that unrelated lesson now, Solux says. Unrelated your ass. This is absolutely a related fact. He just can't tell you it is because of the stupid spell that's to do with whatever is on your skin and whatever happened during the event. So, I have a maker. I mentioned it before. I technically have to do whatever my maker says, but it's not literally every word, and I can negotiate it a little. I guess you have to put some kind of magic into a command to make it a thing I have to do, instead of just words said out loud. Solux explains. It would make sarcasm and figures of speech hard otherwise, I guess. You agree a little weakly. You press your hands to your knees and steady them. They're still shaking like crazy, but as you do, you suddenly realize that your knees really fucking hurt. Your jeans are ripped and soaked and you're bleeding. When did that happen? With a hiss of pain, you pull your hand back and stare at your battered knees. You fell down a bunch of stairs trying to run off and then nearly got hit by a car. Nothing's broken, is it? Solix asks softly and touches your knees ever so gently. I don't know. I barely remember any of that, you admit. Yeah, Solix says quietly as he inspects your knees. He's got all his eyes open, even though his top set are just ever so slightly on, and each of your knees is highlighted in different colors from his eyes. Anyone can summon me if they know how. You need a circle and the right kind of spell. It's easier if you've got my name or something of me, or something on me. My maker doesn't need a circle or any of that, just words with intent. A command to come here right now. When that happens, I have to go. Not being where I'm supposed to be feels wrong. It's not painful, but it's not exactly pleasant, Solix explains. Like full body static. Everything is wrong and you have to go. You have to get to wherever. I had to go, you say. Yes, that's exactly what it's like for me when I'm summoned by my maker. I'm so glad we're talking about me, Solix says pointedly, looking up at you. He's not just talking about himself, obviously. You look over at the empty set of clothes on the ground, the place where that man who had looked just like you was, where he died. He was my maker. He made me. He summoned me here somehow, and you swallow thickly and stare at the rip at the bright red sweater on the ground, right where the knife went through him. And now he's dead, you whisper. Solix moves around so he's leant against the wall by your side, pressed up tight against you from hip to shoulder. I know that you don't really remember him, but my maker is ground into my soul, even with complete amnesia that still hurt. You don't even understand what you're supposed to be feeling, so I'm sorry, Solix tells you quietly, and his tails lift off the dry tarmac to curl around your thighs. You don't know what to think, so you just end up noticing that wherever you are, it's not raining. You don't know where this place is, despite how desperate you were to get to it. Where are we? You ask him numbly. You're not going to like it, Solix warns you. You think about that for a moment. Are we in fucking Georgia again? You demand, and Solix nods. Wait, that means that your maker was here the whole time? He's the only family you have, and he was this close all along? You scrabble forward, wincing when you put pressure on your battered knees and reach for the man's clothes. Solix's tail slides off your leg easily, and he watches you as you search through the back pockets of the dead man's high-waisted jeans. He has a wallet, soft gray leather that's still warm from the heat of a body that's no longer there. Flicking it open, you see the same kind of ID that you have, the one that you get because you don't know who you are. It has his photo, an address in Georgia. His assumed age is in his mid-20s, and it lists his name as Cancri Vantus. How did they register me and him and not work out that we were connected? It's the same state, you hiss furiously as Solix leans over to look at it. From what I remember, the time right after the event was a shit show. People trying to make up procedures and records for something that had never happened before. It's a dumb mistake, though. They should have caught it. Solix agrees. You sit down on your butt instead of your sore knees as Solix walks over and pops the guy's keys out of his ring and his phone out of its charm. He starts tapping through it curiously, probably trying to hack into it or something. You sniff and hate yourself for being angry about this. You can't change the past. Besides, the few memories you've gotten back haven't exactly indicated that living with him would have been a fun time. It still would have been nice to know he was out there instead of feeling that you were all alone for all these years. Who was Cancri anyway? You can't talk to him, so you look through his wallet. You have no other choice. There's his bank card, which tells you nothing, a library card that you approve of but doesn't tell you much either. You freeze when you find the third card that's in his wallet. The stark black HDL logo in the middle tells you what this is without you even having to read the words below it. The Human Defense League. You know the logo because they protested outside your apartment building in Georgia before you went to Salem. They're a group of extremists who believe that non-humans are invading the spaces that belong to humans and trying to exploit humans for their nefarious ends. Whenever any crime is committed by anyone who isn't human, these fuckers always pop up spouting off how it's proof that non-humans are savages. They've killed people before, even though the movement has always denied any involvement with that. It makes no fucking sense, though. You're not human. He's your maker, and he died on some supernatural knife that killed him because he's the same non-human thing as you are. What the fuck? You hiss. Oh, he had a card too, huh? Solix says with a grimace. What do you mean too? Why would he join this? Was he some undercover or something? He had to have been. I know I'm not human. He wasn't. How could he not know? You ask in shock. How did you know that you weren't human? Solix asks, looking up from the phone. Because my voice does that thing, and I always felt like I wasn't part of the rest of humanity, you mumble. Maybe he's not the shouting type, so he didn't find out. I guess he took that discomfort with human society and decided that it was other people who were the problem. He has a YouTube channel, by the way. I've been watching one with subtitles on. If he was undercover, he was really convincing. Solix sighs. He offers the phone to you, but you shake your head. You don't think you can deal with that right now. Is that why those two demons killed him? You wonder. Not that you can entirely blame them. The HDL are awful. And it probably didn't help, but they knew what he was. If he was just some human, they'd have killed him with their bare hands or anything else. That knife was specific, and I don't know how they knew what he was. If it wasn't for him looking just like you, I don't think I'd have known what he was. Solix says with a frown and takes the knife out again, although he's careful to keep it far away from you. Why, you ask? Unless you're kind or actively doing shit that gives you away, you're good at hiding. That little vanishing stunt you pulled before is part of it. Only now it looks like you guys don't even know what you are. That's some stealth. So secret, even you don't know. I mean, maybe if you're someone who's seen a lot, you get better at clocking them, but... Solix shrugs and holds the knife up to the light. And that's made to kill us, you ask. I've only seen one other like this up close. It was a sword, not a knife, so it's not the same weapon, obviously. Crazy rare, and I doubt they have another. I've got to look into this, though. Solix says in a clear displeasure and vanishes the weapon again. You feel awful. The only person you're related to was just murdered in front of you. He was close to you this whole time, and you never knew it. And it turns out he was a complete bastard. There's a sick and awful feeling churning in you that makes you feel like that makes it feel like it wants to infect everything, the same awfulness. You look over at Solix, who's looking right back at you, and your mouth moves before your brain gets involved. Why'd you put it away? You ask him. Because if it breaks your skin, you're dead. I don't need to be waving it around and risking that. Solix answers. Don't you hate me, though? Even if you don't want to kill me, or even if you don't want to kill me, don't you want to stab me anyway? I know you got other swords. Maybe you do want to kill me. Fitting that it'd be in Georgia of all fucking places. You say bitterly. Solix stares at you, and it's a second or two before he answers. Probably exactly 2. I'm sure this hurt, and you're upset, but you don't get to say shit like that. Solix says, his voice stiff and measured. What, am I wrong? Isn't that how it's supposed to go? Because I can't do that. You insist as tears threaten to spill down your face. What are you talking about? Have you been reading human books on demons or something? Because I thought I made it clear that the only humans who know shit about demons are the Lalans. Solix snaps back at you. No, I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't read a book by humans, and I think it's legitimate. You argue back. So it was a book, Solix says after a moment. You do not want him reading what you read. Just forget it. Can we go back? You mumble, looking away from him. Yeah, back to your dorm, where you keep your books, Solix says slowly. You just catch sight of him as he teleports away, but there's nothing you can do to stop him. He's abandoned you in fucking Georgia, of all places. You suppose at least that, more or less, you know where you are and you can get back to Salem from here. You stand up and try not to cry, instead comforting yourself with the thought that, though you don't want to stab Solix or kill him, that you're going to fucking strangle him at least a bit. No, worse than that. You're going to tell Rose that he abandoned you here. Fucking Georgia, fucking Solix, fucking Cancri. You hiss and find that cursing his name feels familiar on your tongue. Looking down at his clothes, you figure that you can't just leave this all here, or else people are going to start to raise weird questions. Questions that if anyone has the slightest amount of detective skill could lead back to you. You sigh and scoop up his clothes into your bag, making sure to wrap the keys that Solix left on the floor into his sweater, so they all stay together. You're wondering if you should maybe track down Kinkry's apartment and investigate that before going back to Salem when Solix reappears with your book in hand. Karkat, this is porn, Solix says loudly. Keep your voice down, you hiss at him. It's a little weird to be on this end of the request. You shut up. Don't tell me what to do. How did you get a book of demon porn, and how'd you even read it anyway? Solix demands. Well, what do you want me to do? Shut up or answer you, you say petulantly. Answer me, Solix insists. You don't want to. You're done with this conversation. You never should have brought it up in the first place. You start walking out of the alleyway, but Solix starts following you. Okay, cool. You can just not answer me, and I can follow you. Reading this out loud, Solix calls after you. That makes you stop. Give me that, you snarl and try to snatch it from him. But Solix can teleport, so that's a fool's game. Where did you get this? Like, you know this is just absolutely shameless porn from cover to cover, right? Solix asks, floating in the air and opening the book. I know that it's somewhat pornographic, yes, that wasn't why I was reading it, you insist. And Solix grins at you like he doesn't believe your motives at all. I happened to get a hold of it through an anonymous source who also gave me a temporary spell that let me read demonic. I'm aware that it's porn, but it's still about relationships, and theatrical and over-the-top as it may be, the red stuff still pretty accurately described regular romance, even if it was a bit, you try to think of the word, clearly, completely unrealistic. Solix suggests, clearly an overdramatic fantasy, just because the plot and dialogue in those ones was as ridiculous as any other smutty romance. You start. What have you been doing all this time by yourself? Is it just reading porn? Is that what you've been doing the last 5 years? Solix interrupts you. You jam your hand in your bag of holding and grab Kinkry's shoe so you can throw it at him. The worst thing is Kinkry would probably be fine with that. Solix dodges it anyway. Shut up, no. I just mean that it's still recognizable as a relationship. The feeling is still there. No, I don't expect someone I'm romantically interested in to I don't know, save me from being eaten by a bear as they stand there shirtless and heroic or something. It still means that someone I love should be prepared to help me when I really need it, and I should be willing to do the same. And yeah, the porn parts are dumb and unrealistic, and I'm going to admit a little confusing, you concede. We talked about demon anatomy, remember? Solix prompts you. I do remember. No repeats needed, thanks. But unrealistic sex is still sex, and I don't want to stab a knife through your shoulder, so you're stuck there in agony because seeing you suffer is supposed to make me happy. I don't want to hurt you like that, or humiliate you, or make you feel like you're going to die. It says about hate, but I don't hate you, you say in a rush. Solix doesn't say anything, but you hear his feet touch the floor again. I don't hate you. Yeah, you drive me crazy, and yes, when you're not being cold to me, I do like bickering with you, and I have to admit that proving you wrong and outdoing you feels good, but hurting you? I can't. Well, not that I don't want to punch you a little for stealing my stuff and whatever, but I'd feel awful if I actually hurt you. I don't want that. And the idea that you is honestly terrifying, you admit. I don't want that, Solix says quietly. You look around at him in shock and see that he's standing there holding the book to his chest and not looking at you. A lot of that is exaggerated, you're right, but you don't remember what this is meant to be like, so you don't know which bits are. And even with that, I'm not entirely like other demons, Solix mutters. What do you mean, you ask? I don't talk about this. I don't want to talk about it either. But unlike you, I'm going to. I don't want any questions, and we're not talking about it again. Got it? Solix says sharply. What can you do but agree to that? You nod. Solix's claws dig into the book a little, and instead of looking at you, he stares at a hole in the wall. When demons are made, we're basically adults. None of this spawning your own young like mammals do. Gross. Sure, there's a while where there's shit you don't know, but after a year, at most, you're basically like anyone else. I wasn't like that, Solix says to the wall. Excuse me. If we're going to act like I was human, you could probably say that I was about 5 when I was made, and I grew up there from human speed. The point is that when I was younger, I wasn't as strong as I am now. My power source wasn't as... Anyway, I was smaller, weaker, and vulnerable. Solix shakes his head. You open your mouth, and Solix looks at you sharply. He did say no questions. The point is that even if you tried to recreate this shit or put a blade to me, I wouldn't be for it at all. I don't want that, and I couldn't do it to you either. We're not talking about why, Solix says. So maybe your book was unrealistic, but Solix isn't a typical demon, at least for the spade stuff. We have a lot of questions about what made him feel that way, or why he was created that way, or why he was created the way he was, but he's not going to answer, and you think you'd be crossing a line to ask. So when you say you hate me, then you ask slowly, that I like being better than you, that I like seeing you work to try to be better than me. I like getting on your skin because you sure as hell get under mine. Yes, it's antagonistic because I fucking hate you, but that doesn't mean I don't like you. Soluk says. It feels like a confession. I like you too. It's sucked lately, you admit. Yeah, Solux agrees. So, you aren't really sure what happens now. I'm keeping the book, Solux tells you. Fine, fucking thief. I can't read anymore anyway. I swear if you touch my other books, though, you warn him, and the way Solux grins makes you certain that you're going to have to check all your books to see if they're in the right place, and he's not done anything to them. You look down at the glowing red and blue around your arm, and your head swims from information overload. Everything is so overwhelming right now. This information about Kenkri, the implication of what you might be, and then all this with Solux. I'm going to get something to drink. It's supposed to stop raining in about an hour back in Salem, and I hate the rain. You may as well come with. Solux says in what is blatantly an invitation. He's not demanding that you talk about whatever weird demonic feelings the two of you have, or your maker or anything, which is good. You don't think you can deal with talking about any of that right now. Yeah, that sounds good. You agree weakly, and follow him out of the alleyway. Whoa, good chapter! Oh, man. Good chapter. I feel like they're gonna get together next chapter. Ooh. I wonder why would Solux want to keep it. Hey, listen, it's free porn. They talked about it. Yes, they talked about it. They've started talking about it. Thank Christ. I love this fucking so much. Carcat, stop looking at the unrealistic expectations in demon relationships because it's porn. Oh, it's so funny. This is such a good chapter too. We learn about Kenkri. Oh my goodness, we get a little insight. Next chapter is also really good. Oh, we got good chapters back to back to fucking back. Oh my goodness. Alright, I have something to be at 8 p.m., so I will have to dip. But this was super, super fun. Next chapter will be tomorrow at 9 p.m. EST as we go back to normal with our times. But yeah, so, I mean, we have confirmation that, like, you know, Carcat and Solux's species are, like, similar, not the exact same, but, like, has the same thing with, like, a maker, so kind of interesting to think about that, you know? But yeah, thank you guys all for hanging out. I will talk to you all tomorrow, again, 9 p.m. EST. We will be doing chapter 16, which is, which is Control, a little bit longer than today's. I will see if I can make it tomorrow. Oh no. Tomorrow will be the late time for you, Unda. But yeah, tomorrow's Control, which I know a couple people have been excited about in the Discord server for us to get to this one. So yeah, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a lovely rest of your night. And yeah, goodbye. Bye-bye. Look, I don't need 2 hours sleep for work, I'm sure. Good night. Bye.